part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another Reghi and Roda podcast right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Shout out to our great producer, Cordts, making sure all of you out there in the podcast are able to pick up the R&R podcast. And Michael Reghi, as bad as it looked last week for the Cleveland Browns, it got a little bit better. Not a lot on offense, but they did just enough to hold on and win their first game of the season as the Browns go into Jacksonville and outlast the Jaguars 18-13, a tale of two halves where the Browns dominated the first half and barely did anything but still won after a crappy second half.
Yeah, Ken, it was not an artistic thing of beauty, but they don't count that, do they, in the National Football League? What they count is wins and losses, and the Browns came out with that W today. So to be able to bounce back and get the win, and I thought virtually every, we'll get into, but I thought every facet of Kevin Stefanski's football team played well, played winning football. And especially when you have that opportunity to put the win on the road against a also team that looks to be a little bit struggling and not figuring things out as of yet, like Jacksonville. So, hey, 18-13 again, not the prettiest, but the bottom line, the much-needed W to get them even at 1-1.
Trevor Lawrence, a.k.a. Sunshine, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, to me, Michael Reghi, looked partly cloudy all day long. He was discombobulated, overthrowing guys, holding on to the football too long, and played right into the hands of Jim Schwartz's defense, I thought, as they register 4 sacks. Myles Garrett gets one, and the big one, I thought, the Alex Wright sack in the end zone for the safety after an unbelievable punt by Corey Bojorquez late in that fourth quarter to give the Browns that 18-13 lead. To me, Trevor Lawrence looks completely confused out there at times, Michael. And I think the Browns feasted off that today and were able to hold them to 13 points and get the win.
Jim Schwartz did a hell of a job today, Kenny. And I think that probably was the Browns' defensive coordinator, of course. And I think that probably was at the top of his food chain, right? We're going to throw everything we can. I saw, I don't know, 4, if not 5 different defensive looks than the Browns showed to, here we go, Dak Prescott last week, right?
Right.
And I was very pleased with that. And the bottom line is that defensively, as you said, they made Trevor Lawrence and that offense look very pedestrian today, and it was absolutely needed. Every facet of the Browns game today, you know, you think about the way Corey Bojorquez punted the football even, right?
Yep.
I mean, the huge one in the fourth quarter. So, again, can you imagine if this football team would have went down there and laid another egg and started 0-2 with a loss to a very pedestrian Jacksonville team? Didn't happen. Browns get the win. Hopefully this puts everybody at rest and ease a little bit, that this team can have the strong season that we all expected. And they took that step in the right direction with that W today, Kenny.
Did Deshaun Watson take a big enough step for you in the right direction today? Because in the first half, they lead 13-3 at halftime, dominated that first half, looked like they're on their way to a blowout victory. But then in the second half, they regressed offensively. He makes the bonehead play to stop the clock, throwing an incomplete pass late in that game to give Jacksonville a chance, which ended up being a Hail Mary in the end zone to win the game still right there. Did he do enough to alleviate any major concerns for you?
Ken, I'm going to put it to you this way. I believe it's to each now, whether you're a Browns fan or guys like us that, analyze this football team each and every week. What are your individual expectations of Deshaun Watson? I no longer can expect him to give this football team the type of Deshaun Watson that had the two absolutely extraordinary quarterbacking years as a Houston Texan, right?
Yep.
I've evolved from that, Kenny. I've kind of moved on a little bit. What I want to see from him is competent, winning quarterbacking play that he doesn't have to be the shining spotlight of that offense each and every week, but he's got to do enough to get everybody else involved, allow them all to bring him along to effective offensive football and win games. So again, for me, that's where I'm at with him. I'm not expecting him to be a guy any longer that's going to throw for 4,200 yards at the end of the season with 35 touchdown passes. I don't think we're ever going to see that Deshaun Watson again. It would be beautiful from a Browns perspective, but I'm being realistic, Roadman. I don't think that's what he's about any longer. Now, can he still be competent enough to forget the stats? Again, are you efficient enough to have your offensive football team have you in position to win? Even without amazing stats today, Kenny, I thought he was through, except with taking away that moment you just mentioned, for the largest part of the football game when the Browns had the ball. He moved the offense and got points on the board when they needed it. That's what I'm looking for from Deshaun Watson every week that the Browns go out.
First half, 11 of 15, 108 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, was sacked once, but carried the ball 4 times, 11 yards, and their only touchdown of the game. In the second half, 11 of 19 for 78 yards, only 1 rush for 9 yards. So he finishes the day throwing the football 22 of 34, a buck 86, no touches, no picks, no fumbles, so no turnovers. Therein lies, to me, the biggest stat of the day, right? With this defense, Michael Reghi, if he can understand that he doesn't have to be that guy that you were just mentioning from a few years ago, right, in Texas, he doesn't have to be that guy. Although they paid him to be that guy, it doesn't look like he can ever get back to that level, at least from what we've seen now in 14 starts for the Browns. But if he can understand that and realize it's okay to punt the football instead of throwing it up for grabs or coughing it up on a run where he's carrying it loosely, and rely on this defense to win games late, then I think the Browns will accept that, even though they have overpaid for him. So let's see if his ego allows him to say, okay, that's who they need me to be, and I'm going to be that guy regardless of what all the national pundits are saying, what all the local media are saying, that I'm not earning my money as long as we're winning games. And by the way, 9-5 as a starter now for Deshaun Watson. As long as we're winning games, that's all that matters.
You're damn right. You're damn right with an exclamation point. And that's the bottom line. Win football games 9-5 as a starter. So, he's now what, 3 games away starting a full regular 17-game season in the NFL, right? So
right,
he's
over
9-5.
3 years, yeah.
So I mean, again, 11-6. That's exactly, again, that's the record I gave the Browns this year that I was looking for. 11-6. 10-7 might get you there. But Kenny, for him, he's got to be able to have his football team as the quarterback in position to win. As I just said, I'll say it, I don't worry about the statistical BS anymore with him. What he's got to do is show that he is a strong enough quarterback leader to have his football team being put in position by him to be able to win football games. That's it. And you know what, Ken? If that means he's only going to throw for 170 yards again, okay, I'll live with it if he's not turning the football over and playing efficiently and being able to operate. The biggest thing to me, stay on the football field and operate. I love seeing those 6, 7, 8 minute drives that wind up putting points on the board. That's what I want to see from Deshaun Watson. And if it only comes up 165 yards passing a game, did you win? Did you win? If you won, fine. Allow everybody else to be with you and be a conduit to what you're doing to win football games. Ken, I mean it. That's all I care about with regard to him now. Is he playing well enough to allow his team to win? It's yes or no, Ken, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't a lot of gray area here. It's either yes, he is, or no, he isn't. Today, yes, he was.
16 play, 89-yard drive, 9 minutes and 14 seconds to start the game offensively for the Browns to put them up 7-0. And they never trailed. Jumped out to a 10-0 lead. Then it was 10-3. Then what was it, 13-3, whatever. And then Jacksonville makes the rally. I just worry a little bit about, okay, when they were good at this last year, they script that first drive and they go right down the field and score. And then they tend to struggle afterwards. And to me, that's a little concerning. However, I will say this, these first two games have been without both Jack Conklin and Jed Wills. Hopefully, sometime soon, if you're a Browns fan, if you're Deshaun Watson, if you're Jerome Ford, those guys are going to actually return and play. When? Who the hell knows? Okay.
Yeah.
But without those two guys, the offense has been affected. So hopefully some things will change when those two guys are back.
And off what you just said, could we put a little innuendo in the mailboxes of Kevin Stefanski and offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey? Hey, why don't you start scripting more drives? Why don't you do that?
Why can't you script the first drive in the second
plays?
Right.
Script more drives. And see how it plays out. Why not? Yeah. Why does it just have to be the first 15 that are scripted? Virtually every team in the NFL does that, by the way.
Right.
So why does that have to script more for them? Stefanski's, supposed to be this, just absolutely a tremendous offensive mind, is he not? And you got Ken Dorsey with him because he believes in him. So, hell, if that's going to be a recipe for success, script more of the drives then and see what plays out.
Reg, only 102 yards of total offense in the second half.
Well, that's, normally that's not good enough. I'll give you that. Normally, that's not going to be good enough. But, Ken, as I said, I'll keep repeating it all show long. I mean, I'm not going to get too caught up in the damn statistical BS right now with this football team.
Okay.
Because, again, I mean, if he throws for 330 and they run for another 140 and they put up 470 yards of total and lose the football game. Well, we know that happens on many occasions with NFL teams, right? I have real good days offensively, don't win. Other areas that draw leaks. They just got to win football games. Sure, you'd like to see him be able to do the things that, as you brought up, why we believe he was paid the money. But again, on a day like today, I'm just not going to get worried on what all the numbers said statistically, because all I know, if they lose that game today, Kenny, you're at 0-2. What do we know about the NFL? Playoff chances, what did I say, are between 11 and 12% when you start 0-2. So they avoided that. So that is the main takeaway and positive from today, the way I see it.
And considering, I guess, everything he's been through, last week it was losing his father on Friday, losing a friend, teammate on Saturday. Then Monday, the story comes out, more allegations. We'll have to wait and see what the NFL does with that, which could affect his play and, the Browns' decision-making and all that. But for right now, he went out today, did just enough for them to win the game. And Michael, you're right. Rather be 1-1 trying to figure things out than 0-2 like the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals are right now to start the season, right? They're trying to figure things out as well. but they're 0-2. Browns are back to 500, and the only team in the division that's undefeated is the Steelers, and they've scored 1 touchdown in 2 weeks, and yet they're at the top of the AFC North at 2-0. I've stopped wagering on the NFL. I will not bet on the NFL the rest of this season. I'm done. The Raiders beat the Ravens today.
Yes.
The Saints crushed the Cowboys. The Browns go on the road and win with 102 yards of offense in the second half. I've given up trying to figure out the NFL.
Yeah, well, and you know what? There's a lot of justification in you making that statement. It's not always easy to figure out every week. But like I said, we could give you a million. You and I could go for another 2 hours, Ken, and go with a million different statistical ideologies and situations from today why the Browns shouldn't have won the football game. As you said, it tailed off in the second half. But again, to be able to come out and go on that, what was that drive 9 minutes to start the football game?
Yes, it was.
9 minute
9 and
drive.
some change. Yep.
See, there you go. That, no matter how you slice it, I'm going to tell you, and I'm sure most coaches would agree with me, that's winning football, especially on the road. They were able to do that today. Are we going to see a game in the next 15 where we're probably going to need to have an understanding that Deshaun Watson's going to have to go out and win a football game, whether that's either throwing the football or getting everybody else involved making plays? Yeah, that's going to happen at some point. But, you don't sneeze on wins in this league. I don't care, how they happen. They may not give you the greatest feeling about how it's going to maintain that consistency of winning that way. But I ain't going to worry about that right now. I was concerned, even with Jacksonville, I don't think they're real good. But, Kenny, I was concerned that if the Browns showed up with a damn clunker today, and as you said, without Conklin, without Wills, this team could easily be 0-2, and now what the hell are we talking about? As you said, well, what we're talking about is a team that just saw, their playoff hopes diminish greatly. Didn't happen. So here they are at 1-1, and now they get a chance to put it on a New York Giants team and get in the win column again next week, which we are fully expecting them to do now. So that's how, for me, Kenny, this whole season is going to be looked at. I mean, I just don't see any other way. If you're looking for tremendous offensive statistical stories every week, I think you're going to be disappointed. It doesn't mean they can't win, nobody. It doesn't mean they can't win. So we'll see how that plays out.
What's more concerning to you of these two stats? 13 penalties for 100 yards or 2 for 14 on third downs?
Wow, they both are very concerning to me. But you know what? Because your opponent, the other team, has a bit of a say how they play in that third down conversion, right?
Right.
Kenny, the penalties, man, that's got to stop. And that, a lot of people say, well, the penalties are on the players. But Kevin Stefanski has got to find a way to get through to these guys then. Because you can't have that. You can't have that many flags. It will cost you games. You know that, and I know that. You have 10 penalties what was it, 10 for what?
It was 13 for 100.
13 for 100. Man, oh man, oh man. Very fortunate. Very fortunate with 13 flags for 100 yards that you won a football game on the road. Very fortunate. Take it and run, but they better get that cleaned up big time. I'm more concerned about that continuing to rear its ugly head, Kenny, than the third down non-conversion story.
Okay. All right. Got to give some love on special. Last week, special teams let them down. Gave up a punt return for a touchdown, factored in the game. This week, Corey Bojorquez with a pitching wedge to the 1 yard line with some side spin out of bounds to set up the safety that the Browns would register. And then after Deshaun Watson inexplicably threw the ball to stop the clock, the next punt, Bojorquez downs it at the 10-yard line. So back-to-back punts with the game on the line. He drops it from the 10-yard line in twice. So much love to Corey Bojorquez. And Michael, last year and this year, where would the Browns be without Dustin Hopkins? Another 50-yard make today. He hasn't missed in his career since he was acquired by the Browns from beyond 50 yards, and that was supposed to be his weakness. He goes 3 of 3 on the field goals today and 1 for 1 on the extra point. This guy is a weapon that Kevin Stefanski has and can use. And I thought they might give him a shot at 57 yards late in the game, but he made the right call by deciding to punt there and going with Bojorquez, and he puts it out at the 1 yard line. So both the punter and the kicker deserve a lot of credit in today's win.
They do. And I think we can agree that Bojorquez and Hopkins are going to play major roles, right?
Yep.
Probably going to play major roles in, again, win, lose. That's just the way the Browns are going to have to play football. And yes, to me, Stefanski, it's not that you don't have confidence in Hopkins, but that was going to be from 57, right?
Correct.
And he opted to bring the punt team out.
Right.
And I applauded him for that, Kenny, as
Me
it
too.
happened. It's a right move to make. It was the right move to make. You led the whole damn game. You had the capabilities of putting them deep. Let's say for whatever reasons, Hopkins doesn't make that. Look at the difference in field position that would have changed. So I applauded Stefanski for that. I thought it was the correct move, and Bojorquez backed him up with that terrific punt.
So the Browns get a victory. They even their record at 1-1. We're going to get a break in here on the R&R podcast. When we come back, we'll look at the division, who everybody is playing next week, and what the Browns will need to do to get win number 2 when they play host to the New York Giants next week. That's when the R&R podcast continues right here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tybus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tybus, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And we continue with the Reghi and Roda podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Browns now 1-1 on the year after they go into Jacksonville and get an 18-13 win. Wasn't pretty. Was nerve-wracking at times, ugly at times, but a win is a win is a win. You'll take your first one. You're back to 500. You're in second place. And now you get ready for the New York Football Giants, who are 0-2. And Danny Pennies, not Danny Dimes, Danny Pennies is coming into town without Saquon Barkley and company. And Michael, this is a must-win game. Hey, I heard Stefanski say this. In the NFL, it's not a marathon. There are 17 sprints. And you look across and see who you're sprinting against that week, and you try and figure out a way to win. And a lot of times you can, feel pretty confident about that sprint. Well, this week's sprint, I expect the Browns to out-sprint the New York Giants and improve to 2-1 with that home game against New York.
I think it's set up for it to be just that weekend. I agree with you there. And the Giants today were involved in a winnable football game and, got beat at the final gun, right, as Washington took them down. Now, Daniel Jones, nobody is, I think, ever going to have visions of Dan Marino when you watch Daniel Jones play. But again, like we said about Deshaun Watson, he played effectively enough to win today, Ken, for the New York Football Giants. Threw for $178 and a couple of touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over. And as you said, no Saquon Barkley, but hey, the Browns better be ready for Devin Singletary. Singletary just a couple of yards short of 100 yards rushing today, and also got in the end zone, scored a touchdown. Malik Neighbors, that terrific rookie wideout, who I really, really like him. Liked him a great deal in college. Caught 10 balls for 127 yards, and the other touchdown that the Giants put up today from Daniel Jones. So, again, the Browns are going to have to play the winning football that we've discussed in the first segment for the last, the initial 15 minutes of the show. And we expect that. We expect that to be able to wipe out the stench. You got to be able, the Browns got to be able to use that home crowd of, was 70,000 plus to their advantage. And I expect that to start here next Sunday, Kenny, because defensively, I gotta believe they're going to be able to do enough things that can confuse Daniel Jones and don't allow this Giants offense to get off.
Big thing for me this week, we'll be keeping an eye on Jack Conklin, Jed Wills. We saw DeJuan Jones lead the game today with an injury. So they were playing with backups at both the right tackle and the left tackle spot. Hopefully next week you get both of those guys back. If not, at least one of the two. If you're Deshaun Watson, Kevin Stefanski, Browns fans everywhere, you're hoping, for one, if not both, which should give the offense a boost. No cheap for a while. Got to give Kevin Stefanski some credit. He lined up some offensive linemen in tight end roles today, to help them. Give Kevin Stefanski credit on the fourth down. Michael, they were only 2 of 14 on third down, but they were 3 of 3 on fourth down as he brings in Jameis Winston for a package, right?
How about that?
And it worked, which I loved to see. The one time on the keeper, the other time fake, and they pitch it to the outside or handed it off to Jerome Ford, and he went for his biggest gain of the game. So I like the fact that maybe they're going to have that package in there for the bigger bodied Jameis Winston on those 3rd and 1, maybe 4th and 1 situations. This is it's a win. You build off of it, and you've got to come out and set the tone early, offensively and defensively next week, and put some doubt in the minds of those Giants that they're going to be 0-3.
Partner, I'm glad you brought up Jameis Winston, because I hope today that Kevin Stefanski and his offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, have an understanding that there are situations that the utilization of Jameis Winston, I think, is going to be able to augment your offense. He's always, right, regardless of what you think about him during his starting quarterbacking days, he's always been a guy in short yardage situations that was able to use his size well, whether it's been on quarterback keeps or decisions in getting him out on the edge, and then whether it's been with a pitch or him keeping the football himself to move the sticks, right? I hope we start to see, I think that can be a positive. I think that Jameis Winston can be a positive for this Browns offense in those type of situations. And Kenny, maybe, I don't know. What do you think about 6, 8 snaps a game for Winston? Maybe in short yardage situations like we're talking about? You think that could be a positive for this football team offensively?
I don't want to overdo it, but I like the amount that he used today because if I'm him, I want to get Watson in a rhythm, and I don't want to take him out of the game too much. I don't want to give like a full series to Jameis Winston inside the 10-yard line. I think if you're trying to get Deshaun Watson back to somewhere close to what he was in Houston, you have to pick and choose very carefully so his ego doesn't get bruised and that rhythm is upset. So I liked how he used Winston today. Watson on the quarterback keeper where they sent, 3 guys out wide, and I think 2 of them were offensive linemen. And he goes right up the middle for the touchdown. So they used him on that keeper, and then they brought Winston in 2 or 3 times in other short yardage situations. So I was okay with how he used him today. And I thought in the first half, Kevin Stefanski called a great game. In the second half, not so much, but that was the entire offense in the second half. But I just think you have to be careful because you don't want to upset the apple cart, if you will, with Deshaun Watson. And nothing grinds my gears more. Nothing pisses me off more, Michael Reghi. 4th and 1, shotgun. Guy catches the ball 8 yards back, and he's got to run it 9 yards to get 1 damn yard to get the first down. So I love when he brought Winston in under center, and you go straight ahead and you get the first down. That somebody's got to explain that to me because that makes no sense. If you're trying to get 1 yard, why you got to run 7 or 8 yards to get?
Well, I'm with you on that, and that's why I think maybe a couple of 3, 4 snaps to Jameis Winston in those type of situations that we're talking about might be ideal for the Browns. We'll see how it plays out.
Right.
But I'm going to be keeping an eye on that because I think that's where Winston can be a big help to Watson. Now, let's hope Watson, as you said, let's hope Watson takes this in the right way. And if he's all about winning, he will, right? He will, period. Nothing else added to that. He will take it the right way in knowing that this has been a strong suit of Jameis Winston during his starting days is being able to pick up short yardage first downs with his legs. Go back and look at it in his starting quarterbacking career, did it a lot. I'm hoping that everybody comes to the realization, hey, this can help the offensive production.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we're talking about here? Bottom line. You got 53. I mean, use them all. Use everybody. It's going to take everybody for this football team to be the type of successful they want to be. So I was pleased to see that, albeit just a couple of snaps, that's fine, but that Jameis Winston was a contributor today.
The AFC North after 2 weeks, Michael, the Steelers 2-0. They'll host the LA Chargers, who are also 2-0 on Sunday, I believe. Cleveland 1-1, hosting the New York Giants at 1:00 next week. Baltimore 0-2 on the road at Dallas. Cincinnati 0-2 hosting Washington on Monday Night Football. So that's the way the AFC North looks after 2 weeks and what lies ahead in week 3. And you know what? Browns with a win next week could be tied for first place very easily, Michael, because I still think it's smoke and mirrors with the Steelers, and they haven't played anybody. And they've scored 1 touchdown in 2 weeks. So the Chargers and company, I know Justin Herbert got injured again today. We'll see how serious that injury is. He finished the game, but that's going to be a tougher test for them next week.
Now, Browns fans, come on, Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah,
come on and take Pittsburgh down. That's why I love the dynamics of the National Football League with everybody's fandom, right, Kenny? I mean, 99% of Browns fans that abhor Jim Harbaugh now we're going to be rooting for him next week to go into Pittsburgh and take down the Steelers. But again, the beauty of the National Football League. So, and hey, I tell you what, you watch. I don't know if we should. It'll be a playoff team with his football team. You watch. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they go into Pittsburgh and beat them next week. At all. Because I think Harbaugh knows what you just said, that Pittsburgh's offense looks like they got a long way to go before they get themselves to the point that they're going to need to be. I mean, you got to be able to put up, I don't know, 20, 23, 24 points to win consistently in the NFL, usually, correct? Well, did you have any, that's, the team that, you grew up rooting for. Do you have any great feeling that that's what they can do each week right now?
Oh, I'm just happy when they score a touchdown, which they did today. That was their first of the year. And they barely won 13-6. So, defensively, Michael, they may be as good as anybody in the NFL this year.
Well, that doesn't change.
Right.
But offensively, I mean, they're gonna, I guess if you're a Steeler fan, you gotta be looking at a lot of 16-13, 13-9 type wins for the black and gold this year.
Yeah. And does Justin Fields start next week if Russell Wilson is back healthy, or do they make the switch even though they're 2-0 and go back to the veteran? So we'll have to wait and see on that. But I think more pressure while they're struggling offensively, more pressures on Lamar Jackson and Jackpot Joey as they're 0-2. How about this?
Oh, yeah.
Third year in a row, Jackpot Joey and the Bengals are 0-2 now for the third consecutive year.
How about that?
Now, they gave Kansas City everything they could handle.
They did. Should have won the football game.
Yep.
But see, Kenny, I think we've talked about it. Zach Taylor?
Yeah.
Nah, I'm not a big Zach Taylor head coach guy. Now, so does he wind up doing enough improprieties to hold them back and not allow them to win? Maybe. We'll see. But, hey, listen, if you and I would have said that after 2 weeks, between the two of them, they'd be 0-4. We both would have told each other, no. Come on now. Let's quit talking.
I'd have said, you're full of shit, Reg. I ain't no way.
That's right. I'd have told you. I hear you. And I would have said, stop being crazy.
Yeah.
That ain't happening.
Right.
So, So, but here they are. 0-4 between the two of them. 0-2 each. So, the Browns, again, I don't give a... Sure, it'd be nice if the offense just explodes next week against the New York Giants. But, Kenny, I'm not going to sit around and count on it happening all week. I think you're going to have some times where there's pedestrian offensive performances, and they're going to have to find a way to win. I feel comfortable in saying I believe they can. I do believe they can.
We'll see how it turns out next week, and afterwards, you and I will get together to wrap it up after week number 3 when the Giants come to town to play the Browns. Always a pleasure to get together with you, Michael Red Guy, and we'll do it all over again in a week's time.
Ditto, buddy. Same right back at you, and I look forward to crunching it all up after the hopeful win over the New York Football Giants next week.
Thanks again to our producer, Cordts, for making all of this happen and making sure all of you out there in the podcatosphere are able to get the R&R podcast. Go to Press Play Podcast Network. You can subscribe there, find out about all the great shows we have on the Press Play Podcast Network. And anytime the R&R podcast puts out a new one, you'll get a notification on that. Or you can just find us anywhere podcasts are found, or just ask your smart device to find the Reghi and Roda podcast.